Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to the Pearls of Peace Zentangle inspired class. I just got done teaching this class for the Napa Public Library, and I thought I would share it with you as well. So let's talk about the things that we're going to use for class. I'm going to be working with a Micron PN pen. This is a really nice pen to tangle with, but you can use your favorite tangle pen. I'll be working with the Mizu Love white gel pen. You can get these on Amazon if you're interested, or you can use a Sakura Jelly Roll pen. I like the 10s the best. I have a number 2 pencil and I have a little tortillon. If you don't have a blending stump or a tortillon, you can always use a Q-tip in lieu of that. And you know me, I'm going to be working with the Genesis tile from tangledyogi.com, but if you don't have one of these tiles, you can draw a square on your favorite sketch pad or your favorite cardstock, and the square should be 4.5 by 4.5 inches. So with that said, let's get started with the Pearls of Peace class. As many of you know, we like to do a little bit of a grounding exercise before we get started with our Zentangle practice. And today I thought I would start with a quote. And I really love this quote, and it says, "There is no way to peace. Peace is the way." And this class was started during the time when the war broke out in the Middle East, and all I can say is that it has been deeply, deeply saddening to see what has been occurring there. And I keep thinking about this quote, "There is no way to peace. Peace is the way." And I think part of it is that we can do things every day that bring about peace in our lives and peace to others. And so it could be holding the door open for somebody, or it could be letting somebody in to a lane on a freeway, or paying it forward and buying somebody's coffee behind you. Anything that we can do to spread a little bit of joy these days, I think no matter how small it is, those are little morsels of peace that we spread. And this class is one of those ways that I'm trying to spread peace to you. So with that said, let's take a comfortable seated position and let your spine grow comfortably tall. Let your shoulders melt away from your ears. And if you're okay with it, you can allow your eyes to close. And letting yourself just notice your breath here as you inhale and exhale slowly. And as you breathe in, notice the body expand with breath. And as you breathe out, feel the release. Breathing in and feeling the body expand. Breathing out and feeling the body let go. One more time, big deep body breath here. And let it go with a sigh. And then just let your breath come back to its natural pace for a moment. And notice if the breath is a little bit more full and a little bit more easy. And then beginning to wiggle in your fingertips and your toes. And if you've closed your eyes, gently blink them open and add vision back into your practice. And let's get started. So I'm going to begin with my graphite pencil today, and I'm going to start by putting dots in my corners. And I'm going to go ahead and start to connect my dots, and you'll see that I'm going fairly lightly with the graphite pencil here. Turning the tile to make it work for my hand. And once again, creating a nice frame for the piece here. I'm going to go ahead and start to create a string, which is a way of dividing the space. And you can see that I've just made 2 dots in the middle of those 2 lines right there. And all I'm going to do is divide the space in which we're going to work in today. And you can see that I did that very lightly with my pencil. I'm going to turn the tile, and once again, creating 4 squares in which to work in. So go ahead and do yours. So we're going to start to build the string, and many of you have seen me use a coin to do circles in the center, but if you happen to have a circle template, you can use that and use maybe the 3rd largest from the top here, and that will be good enough. I'm just a sucker for using a coin because I always have them handy. And so I'm just going to take that coin and put it right in the center here. And I'm just going to go ahead with my graphite pencil and trace around it. And you can see that that gives me a pretty nice sized circle. And then, you can go around it very, very lightly with your pencil and get pretty darn close to having a really nice circle there. I'm just taking my time with this. It's just, for me, it really helps me to have something nice in the center of my piece. So I used a quarter, but you could use a nickel. A dime might be a little small, but those are the ones that I have for today. So I'm going to be using the quarter. So go ahead and put your circle in the center, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about our first tangle, which is part of our string, and it's called cindio. So we're going to continue to build our string, and we're going to start to work with a tangle that is called cindio. And this was created by Stephanie Jennifer. And what cindio is it's a U-like shape with a flare at the edge of it. So you can see that the edges are flared here, and let's go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit. Now once we have that, I want you to think of muka here, the tangle muka, and you're going to see me come in and make a little bit of a inroad here, and then I'm going to come back out and go around. I'll pause, come over here, make another muka-like shape, and connect. Now once I have that, I'm going to come to the inside of cindio and make this kind of cloud-like shape. And there's another tangle that we're going to be using inside of cindio. It's called amath. And amath is V, and you can see that I'm coming to the midpoint of cindio. I'm going to make a V, and then I'm going to do an aura of the V, and then I'll make a diamond on the inside. Super fun, super easy, and it really is this beautiful ornate flower. So go ahead and try this out on a scratch piece of paper, and we're going to come back and we're going to use it as part of our string. So you can see that I've turned my tile so that the corner is facing up here. I'm going to come down away from the corner about 3/4 of an inch and make a little bit of a dot on each side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a U-like shape that's not exactly going to touch that circle, but it's going to get pretty darn close. And once I have that U shape, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bounce off the side. And you can see that I'm using my graphite here. This is just to build the string here. And I'm going to do that U-like shape over here as well. Once I've got those in there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dive down, letting that aura come really close, if not touching that inner circle. So you can see there's the first one. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do an arc. So I'm going to come just below the lip here and do those cloud-like shapes, just like so. I'm going to turn the tile and I'm going to do it again. So coming down from the top, about 3/4 of an inch away from the top, dropping down and making that U-like shape, not touching that circle just yet. And then once again, make your little arcs for your muka, coming down, and you can let it touch or you can let it hover depending on what works for you. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue doing that same thing on the other side. Let's go ahead and do the cloud, just like so. Okay, so you can see what that looks like. I'm going to just do the same thing on the opposite side. You go ahead and do yours. Okay, so you can see that I've got my basic shape in here for everything, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to do something we call an overdraw. An overdraw is just what you think it is. I'm just going to come in and retrace the lines that I did, and what I love about doing an overdraw is that you relearn the tangle, and it really creates this physical memory inside of your body as you are working with this tangle. So you can see that I'm just coming in and doing that overdraw, just like so. Take your time with it, and then coming in and doing the arc for the cloud. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to do all of mine. You go ahead and do yours. So you can see that I've had a chance to do my overdraw, and I actually did the circle as well in the center. So let's go ahead and bring Amath into it, that really fun tangle in the center. You're going to see me come down to the midpoint in Syndio here, and I'm just going to make a dot on each side, and I'm going to make a little dot right here in the center so I have a place to land. And you can see that I'm going to make my V, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a very narrow aura. And then I'll come in and I'll do that diamond-like shape with a nice aura around that. Now what I'm going to do with Amath is I'm going to come in and I'm going to pool my ink, or I'm going to puddle my ink into the space. And with these pens, when you're working with them, you want to go really, really lightly. So the lighter you go, the more the ink flows. You can see that my pen is probably a little bit older, but it's coming along just fine. And I tend to do little circles when I'm doing my pooling in of ink. I'm going to turn the tile, make it work for my hand here. And you can see that when you're working with the black, it gives us a really nice graphic feel. And then what I'll do is I'll come into the center here and pool my ink around my diamond. And look at how cool that is. It's got a really neat feel to it. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then I'll go around to each one of these and do the same thing. Have fun and do yours too. So we're going to start to add in another tangle into this piece, and we're going to do it kind of low, and we're going to do it in between the spaces of our flowers here. And we're going to do another flower that is called henna drum, and I use this a lot, and it's a great filler when you're working with kind of some horizontal spaces. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a little arc, and then an arc again. And then I'll come in and I'll create these two little antennae here. And these antennae just are little spaces where you can add a little wave line. So it's just two antennae and then a wave and another set of antennae and a wave. Okay? So the way that this is going to work is we're going to come in here, and I'm just going to pick up my pen and do this really nice and low. So you're going to see me come in, and I've got a little bit of space between me and the cindios here, and I'm going to do a low arc, and then I'm going to do another arc that's going to come right over the top of it. Now I want to keep my henna drum nice and low because I'm going to be adding another tangle on top. So I'm just going to do two short little antennae here and then a wavy line. I'm going to do another set and a wavy line. I'm going to let this kind of go behind Cindio over here, and then I'll let this one go behind. And it gives it a really nice feel. So let's go ahead and do that again. I'm just going to turn the tile, make a low arc, another low arc, and then low antennae here, because we're going to leave some spaces for our doves. So there's another one. Let's go ahead and turn this here. Nice and low, keep it low. It's almost like a sun rising just under the horizon here. Keeping it low. I know the desire is to make that flower nice and big. And then once again. Coming in. Nice and low. And there you have it. This really nice combination of flowers going all the way around. So you go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we're going to work with a new tangle called Unizen. Okay, so we are going to come in and learn a new tangle today, and this is a tangle that's been kind of morphing through my classes over the last year or so. Since the war in Ukraine broke out last year, I started developing these dove symbols that I've been putting into my classes, and so this particular dove or version of it, I'm calling it Unizen, and it's a play on words here. So the word in unison means together, and the only way that we can have peace is if we cooperate together, and so that's where the name is coming from. And so the way that Unizen works, and you're going to see a theme here because we've been working with the U-like shape, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a U, just like so. And then I'll come in and just make a little arc on the top, and that's going to be for the little bird head here. And then I'll come in and I'll do a leaf-like shape, and then I'll come up and over and create this little tail that comes in and connects. Now once I have that, I'm going to put a little triangle right here for a beak with an eye. And then for this particular iteration of Unizen, we're going to come in and do a little bit of printemps. And then watch, I'm going to come down from the corner here and create these little wings. So we're just going to come down and connect, come down and connect, come down and connect, and last one right here, and that's going to give him his little wings that he has. And you can go as far down as you want. If you wanted to carry on and let it go all the way into printemps, you could let it go into printemps as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring Unizen into our piece here. And if you want to do this with your graphite pencil, you're welcome to do that. I know that some people can be a little bit particular about this tangle. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start by creating this U, and I want you to see this as it's continuing underneath the flower here. So I'm just going to lift up my pencil and come out the other side, and there is my U. Okay? I'm going to come up and over and make his head, and then I'll come up and make that leaf-like shape, and then I'll come over here and I'll go ahead and create the tail just like so. I'm going to go ahead and give him his beak, and then I'll give him an eye, and then I'm going to come in and give him his printemps and start to create the wings of my dove, just like so. Let's go ahead and do another one together. So I'm just going to turn my tile, and remember, each one of these is going to be a little bit different. Not all doves are the same, so it's okay if you have a variation on your doves here. Coming up and over, coming down, up, over, and there's the tail connecting. Give him his beak, give him his eye, and a little bit of printemps, which is the spiral or spring. And then once again coming down and just letting it connect to printemps. Now these are going to be really fun when we come in and we shade them in, but for the meantime I'm going to come back in and I'm just going to do a very soft overdraw on these, and I'll do an overdraw on this one since he's a little bit bigger. And so all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start the way that I did with that U-like shape. Coming up and over and creating that arc for his head and giving him his wings, and then over to his tail. Once I have that, I can come in and create. I'm a little bit off here, but that's okay. And then I'll give him his little spiral. I'm going to give him his beak, give him a little smile, and his eye. And there you have your dove. Okay? So go ahead and play with these. I'm going to go ahead and play with mine. And I hope that you enjoy this tangle and that it's something that you enjoy drawing. All right. Have fun with that. Okay, so much fun. Hope you're enjoying that tangle. And so you can see that I've had a chance to go all the way around and ink mine in. And I just love those little doves. I think they're very sweet. So we're going to add another tangle into the piece here. And many of you know Fescue, but I don't like to assume anything. So we're going to put Fescue into this here. And Fescue is one of those tangles that comes from headquarters. And all it is you just have a line with a little teardrop on it and you pull it in. And that's Fescue. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back into our cindios here. And the reason why I had you put in the dove first is I want our fescues to be leaning towards our doves, in towards our unizens here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up at the top here of this piece, and I'm inside of the cloud, and I'm just going to make a little arc that's going to dive down on the left-hand side of our amath here. And I'm going to go ahead and put that little teardrop shape on the end of it. I'm going to do another one that's arcing over and bringing it in, and then another one that brings it in right over here. Okay? And then you can come in and pull those in, just like so. And I really wanted it to be kind of leaning in towards the dove here. So I'm going to do the same thing over here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to where my cloud is and make an arc, and this is going to land on the right hand side of the amath here. See how it's landing on the right hand side? And that fescue is turning in towards the dove. I'll do another one that comes out a little bit shorter, and then another one right here. And then I'm going to pool my ink just like so. Remember, the lighter you go, the more the ink will flow. And also acknowledging if you're tightening in your shoulders or holding your breath, see if you can let that back in. I'm going to turn the tile, And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So you can see I've got my two blank ones right here. And I'm going to start right up at the top in the cloud and land on the left-hand side of Amath here. And create that little teardrop. Coming up and over, arcing towards the bird here. And one more. Pooling my ink. Pooling my ink. And one more time, pooling the ink. I'm going to come over to the other side and do the same. So I'm coming in, arcing, and pooling the ink when I get to the very end of creating these. So those are facing in towards our little unisons here, just like so. Super fun. It adds just a little bit of flair, and I hope you really enjoy it. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and when we come back, we're going to pool our ink in one more spot. So I'm going to come back into the space where we have henna drum in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave a little bit of white right up at the top, and I'm going to pool my ink right around the arc of my henna drum. So you're going to see me just come in little jagged lines right here and there, and then pooling, turning my tile, getting right in there, and last one right here. Getting right in there. So you go ahead and finish up yours, and I'll finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to work on the center. Okay, so we're going to be coming into the center here, and we're going to be putting the peace symbol into the center. And I just want to say a couple of things about the peace sign here. And I know that a lot of people think it's very cliche to have a peace sign. And all I can say is that we are living in times that I've never seen in my lifetime, and it's very troubling to see what's going on in the Middle East. It's also very troubling to see what's going on in Ukraine right now. And I wanted to share with you the quote from John Lennon, and he says, "Peace is not something you wish for. It's something you make. It's something you do, something you are, and something you give away." And so as we're creating this peace sign today, I'd like you to keep that in mind as we are keeping this idea alive of peace and keeping that idea of unison. It can happen if we're all together on it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my graphite pencil here, and I'm going to come in towards the center, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a little arc that's going to come from off center here. And then I'll do another arc that's going to come from off center. Now once I have that, I'm going to come back in and up. And then I'll do another one that comes in and up. And then I'll drop it down. And that's going to be my peace sign for today. Now we are going to add a tangle around our peace sign, and that tangle is called nippa, and it is a series of circles with lines around it. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just come in here and ink that in, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these series of small circles almost like bubbles. And you can see that I'm not doing them the same way on each side. I'm kind of varying them up a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'm going to bring these vertical lines that are going to come down in between, and you just want to take your time with these. You know, one of the things that I've learned from Zentangle is if I'm rushing, it really shows up in my lines. So I'm just going through and adding these vertical lines, and I find that the vertical lines really make that peace sign pop. It gives it drama. And then I'll come down here and add a few more. And so that's going to be the centerpiece for our composition today. Go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine. And then when we come back, we're going to do just a couple of final touches before we start with color. So I'm going to come back out to Cindy-O here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these corners and close them off here. So I'm just going in and closing them off. You can see that I'm using my frame as my guide here. Just getting that around. And once I've got those corners closed off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in and I'm going to use those same vertical lines that we did in the center and bring that in towards Cindy-O here. Taking my time. And I really love these. It just gives the corners so much energy. And when we come back in and do our shading in there, it will really, really pop. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that again on the other side for you just so that you can see it. So all I'm doing is just these nice vertical lines coming down towards Cindy-O. And so that's what I'm going to do in these two corners over here. You go ahead and do yours as well. So you know me, I don't tend to use a lot of eraser in my work here, but I'm going to erase where the frame was around our piece stubs here because there are no borders to piece. It just has to be nice, open, and free in order for piece to spread, right? So I'm going to go ahead and open up those borders around the birds here and get those all cleaned up. And you can see that I'm taking away any of those string lines that I had before. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into where my birds are and I'm going to add a little bit of an olive branch that is going to go through his beak. So you're going to see me just kind of do a soft wavy line and I'm going to pick it up as I go around his beak, and then I just add a little teardrop on each side for my olive branch there. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do that again. I'm going to give him a smile first, and then I'm going to let that olive branch go through and give him those little leaves. So just a soft wavy line. Letting those come through. He needs a smile as well. And there you can see he's got his little olive branch. Now for me, I love the idea of almost like it emanating outward, and I use tipple a lot to make energy move outward in a piece. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the tangle of tipple, which is just an orb. Usually they're in clusters, but I'm going to make my tipple effervesce today. So it's going to look like this. I'm going to do a nice circle here. and then I'll do a smaller one kind of floating away like champagne, and then maybe another one here, and then maybe I'll do a medium one here, and I'll just kind of let them float off, as it were, just to give the idea that it's moving outward. So I'll come in, do a nice one right there, one over here that's floating away, maybe one there. And you know, they can all be different. It doesn't have to be the same every time. You can see that I'm just working my way around. And these are kind of the reason why I named the class Pearls of Peace. It's almost as if these pearls are working their way out into the world. So that when we come back to center, it looks as if those pearls are emanating outward. So go ahead and finish up yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with color. Yay, color! So I love bringing color into my pieces as I'm working with them to do my shading. I just love to give a little bit of vividness to it. And for me, Zentangle has been such a wonderful vehicle for adding color into my artwork, and I hope that you feel the same way as well. So I'm going to pick up 3 different colors here. I've got a yellow, an orange, and a red. For those of you who are working with Prismacolors, I'm working with this is Sunburst Yellow, which is 917. I have the color Orange, which is 918. And I also have the color Crimson Red, which is PC 924. Now remember, if you're not working with Prismacolors, all you need is a yellow, an orange, and a red, and I promise you it will all work out just fine. Now some of you know that I do love to use white as a blender. This is PC 938. Can you tell I love this pencil? So have a white pencil handy from your color pencil set. A charcoal pencil will not work. It needs to come from your color pencil set, okay? And you want to make sure that your pencils are all good and sharpened up. When you're working with color pencils, you're not necessarily working with the tip all the time. Sometimes you're working on the side of a pencil, and so you want to be able to get as much movement out of that pencil as you possibly can. Now, for those of you who are new to working with color, just a reminder here that each color pencil is 3 different colors. You have light, you have medium, and you have dark. It's all about the amount of pressure that you're putting on your pencil. So even if you have a small color pencil set, you can really do a lot with just a small amount. Okay, so you can see that I've got my pencil all good and sharpened up here, and the way I'm going to hold my pencil is with my thumb and my index finger, and we're going to be rubbing the side of the pencil into the page, not the tip. Normally when we are working and doing detail, we're holding the pencil like this, but because we're going to be doing a lot of foundation work, we're going to be working with the side of the pencil. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this one right here. And we're going to start to work by rubbing the side of the pencil into the page with little circles. And you can see that I'm working around that tangle of Amath, and I also am working around the tangle of Fescue. And I'm staying inside of the tangle Cindio. Or Cindio, sorry. Cindio. So you can see then I'm just doing that very soft orange first. This is how we're going to get a really beautiful vivid color. I'm not pushing hard, it's just a light foundation. I'm going to pick up now my red. This is that crimson red, and I'm going to start to rub the side of the crimson red into the page same way as I just did before, but I'm just going to follow the line of the the tangle here. It's almost like I'm creating a shadow on the inside, and you can see that I'm still working in little circles, holding the pencil from the very, very back. Now once I've got that red shadow going on here, I'm going to come back in, and you can see that I've gone up a little bit on the pencil here, and I'm going to take the tip and I'm going to start to push a little bit harder. And this is what I love about working with Prismacolor pencils, is that they really do layer quite well, and when you layer your colors you really get a much richer color. So I'm just creating a nice shadow around Amath here. And I'll even go and press a little bit harder right along the black line just to get that richness, almost like a glow is what we're looking for. And then I'll come back in with a little bit of my yellow. So you can see I've got yellow here, and I'm going to just start to go where the line of demarcation is for the orange and the red. And you can see that I'm just kind of dancing in there. And now I'm going to start to dip into the red, and you're going to see the red start to turn orange. What I love about blending with these pencils is that you're not using white as your blender, you're using color, and it creates more of a vivid feel with the color pencils. And so you can see that this is really starting to take shape very nicely. If I was using white with this, it would get very pastel-y, and I want it to feel very vivid, almost like a sunset here. So you can see that I'm really getting in there and getting that nice color. And you'll also notice that this tends to blend into the paper as you're working as well. It takes some of that toothiness off of the color. So there you can see we've got a really beautiful feel for our piece here. So I'm going to go around and do all of mine. You go ahead and do yours. Remember to relax, soften your shoulders, and let your breath be nice and full. Okay? Have fun with this. We're here to have fun. All right, so one of the things that I like to do when I'm working with yellows and oranges is I will take a little bit of my white and start to blur out the edges a little bit. So you can see that I'm taking my white pencil, this is PC 938, and I'm just blurring the edges so that we get a little bit of a butteriness to that color. You'll notice that I'm not bringing it down into the red too much because I want to keep that vividness down there. I want you to think of a cup of coffee. If you add white into a cup of coffee, it turns almost like a light cream color, and I don't want to lose the vividness of that red. So I'm just letting that white come into where the yellow and the orange are, but keeping it away from the red. Okay, so I'm going to go around and work with the edges of my petals, and then when we come back, we're going to start to introduce a new color. Before we introduce a new color, I'd like to look at henna drum just for a minute. That's the really beautiful little flower that we have in here. And let's go ahead and zoom in on henna drum here. And you can see that I've got a little bit of a line still in there. I'm going to pick up my little eraser and get my guideline out of there so that it's not going to be impeding my color here. And I'm just going to start with a little bit of yellow inside of henna drum, and you want to make sure that your pencil is nice and clean. And I'm just going to start with a little bit of yellow around that. And then once I have that, I'll pick up a little bit of that red again and start to dust the inside edge with a little bit of red. Now I'll pick up that yellow pencil again and I will blur out the edges just a little bit. So you can see that that yellow really drags around the red and gives it this kind of beautiful, almost like a seeping color, which I really like, and I hope that you like it too. And you can play as much or as little with that red as you want. You could come back in and just add a little dusting of that red back right around the inside, and that's really pretty. It gets it to glow. If you wanted to pick up a little bit of that white, you could pick up some of that white and just go along the edge and make it a little bit more blended if you want a really soft look. Okay? So go ahead and play with yours. I'll finish mine, and then when we come back, we'll add the new color. So you can see that I've had a chance to go all the way around with that, and it really looks really nice and vivid there. So I'm going to let go of the orange and the red, but I'm going to keep the yellow, and I'm going to pick up a green. So this is PC 909, which is the grass green, and then I still have in my hand the sunburst yellow here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in with that grass green, and we're going to be working with it inside of Amath here. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to come in and start to rub the side of the pencil into where Amath is. And I'm going to let it go up about 3/4 of the way up. I'll do the same thing on the opposite side here. And then I'll come back in and press a little bit harder and start to get a really nice vividness on the piece here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it so that it's easy for my hand to work with. And then once I have that, I'm going to come in with a little bit of that yellow, and I'm going to start to let it kind of dip into where my green is. It makes it look a little bit like a watercolor. Now, if you want to take a little bit of the white, I'm going to clean off my white here, and you want to blur those two together where you have the dark and the light. You can also let it creep up into where the yellow is a little bit, and you get a really nice kind of soft pastel look to that, which is really quite gorgeous. Look at the difference between here and there. Here we've got a lot of scratch, here it's got a lot of blend. So I'm just coming in right where the light is meeting the dark green, and then right where the light green is meeting the yellow, and getting a really soft blend off of that. Now the other thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in and use a little bit of that grass green. You'll notice that it's going in a circular motion, and really getting a nice shadow around that cindio. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of that yellow and start to let it seep down into that green, getting a really nice vividness going here. I'll pick up a little bit of that white and start to blur my edges a little bit. And look at how that just kind of softens up the edge. And then you can come back in with that green and give a little shadow, just to make it really pop. I just love that. It just gets that edge to really glow. So you can play with that. You can even come down a little bit with that yellow if you wanted to, and really get it to be quite vivid. And look at how that really plays that corner up. Really, really fun. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to play with this one. And when we come back, we're going to start to add that green into the center. Okay, so let's take some of that green and start to bring it into the peace sign here. You're going to see me come about a quarter of the way down the peace sign in a very, very soft way with that grass green. And I'm starting to just dust it into the edges of the symbol. And just really kind of keeping it soft. Now once I get to the bottom of the symbol here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to bring a little bit of depth into the bottom, almost like a little shadow. And soften that up a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of my white. You want to make sure there's nothing on that white and start to blur the edges of that shadow. And you can let that start to work its way up the peace sign here. And then I'm going to pick up just a touch of that yellow and start to give it a little dusting at the top, just to make it look as though it's kind of seeping down. I love it to look like watercolor if I can. So there is how I'm going to handle the peace sign in the center. So go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to add just a little bit of orange in there and a little bit of purple. Okay, so we're going to start to work with the middle here, and I want to show you something. In my hand, I have lavender, which is PC934. Can you tell that I love this pencil? It's a sad story. They have discontinued lavender in the Prismacolor line, which makes me very, very sad because I did really enjoy working with this color. Now, you can also use lilac, which was also discontinued. But I do have some good news for you. The good news is that Prisma has come out with two new colors that are very similar to lilac and to the lavender, and one is called Orchid, which is very close to the lilac, and then the other is called Amethyst, and the Orchid number is PC1105 and the Amethyst is number PC1004. So if you were a fan of those colors, you can definitely go and pick up the new colors and play with them. I have mine and have been playing with them, but I really love working with my lavender, and I will work with it until I no longer have a pencil. So there it is. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, and by the way, so what I'm looking for is just a pale purple. So you could also use Parma purple or Parma violet, depending on what it says in your piece, your Prismacolor set. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a very, very light dusting of this really kind of soft lavender color and dust it in. And once I have it dusted in the way that I'm hoping for, I'm going to pick up a darker purple. Now you could use violet, you could use the blue violet. It just depends on what you're looking for. But one of my favorite colors is the dahlia purple, and I just love this color. It is such a beautiful color, and of course mine is worn away, and so it's anybody's guess what that number is, and I will probably be able to figure that out for you in a minute. and that color is PC1009. So I'm just going to take some of that darker dahlia purple here, and I'm going to create a little bit of a shadow to get that peace sign to pop forward. And you can see that I'm using little circles as I start to bring that forward here. And then I'm going to start to press just a little bit harder and give that some vividness. I'll come in right in here, do a light dusting right on the side, and just get that to kind of pop off. Now, what I am going to do is I am going to pick up just a touch of that white and just blend that in a little bit so that it is soft. And you can see that that really does bring a nice shadow in there. Now I am going to pick up a little bit of that yellow that we started with earlier and do a little dusting on the little circles that we have in here. You're going to see that I'm going to dust them about halfway through. And let's go ahead and see if I can get that so that it doesn't blur out. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of the orange and do a little bit of orange on the inside edge there, just to keep it interesting. Now, if you're going to use your white pencil to blend these in, you want to make sure that you're really well sharpened up, because when you're working in such a small space here, it's really hard to get a blend when you have a rounded edge. So you can see that I've picked up my pencil and I've gotten it really well sharpened up so that as I'm blurring out the orange and the yellow together, they're really going to come together quite nicely. I really love the way that that came out. So when we come back, we're going to continue working with the lavender and the dahlia purple. Hopefully you've had a chance to work with your peace sign in the center, and I'm going to come up and start to work with my dove here. And I'm going to be working with one of my favorite colors in the Prismacolor line. This is actually the blush pink. This is PC928. I love working with this color because it has a real earthy tone to it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on my peace dove here. And I'm going to be working with the blush pink, and I'm going to sharpen it up so that I have a really nice long lead there, and this is going to help me to work in a lot of the space that I have. Now I'm going to go ahead and start to dust in some of that pink, and you can see by the way that I'm holding that pencil that I'm just rubbing the side of the pencil into the page here. Now, I'm not going to do the whole dove, I just want to have a blush of that pink on the dove. And then I'm going to come back in with a little bit of that lilac, or rather the lavender, and do a little shadow of where that flower is. And I would say I'm going about halfway up. And then I'm going to pick up the dahlia purple again, and I'm going to do just a little pop of the dahlia purple in right where the flower is. So I'm just going to let it have a little bit of gravity, a little bit of depth. And then once I have that, I'm going to pick back up that white again, making sure that the white is all clean so that you're not carrying any other colors in there. You can see that I'm blurring my edges where the lavender is meeting the pink. And then I'm just going to dip ever so slightly into that dahlia purple. I don't want to lose the vividness of it. So I'm just going to get a little bit and pick it up and give a little bit of a shadow, and that just gives us a really nice anchoring. Now, one of the things that I like to do is I like to come back up to where the wing is, and I'm going to add a little bit of that pink, and I'm going to let it go halfway up the wing. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a little bit more of that lavender right in where the neck is. You can see that I'm creating a little bit of a shadow. And then a little bit of that dahlia purple, just to give it a little bit of interest. And then I'll come in and I'll do little bits of that white just to give it a blend. And look at how much that has changed that little dove. Isn't he so sweet? See, these are really, really flat, and now he's got a little bit of personality. I'm going to take a little bit of orange and put it in his beak, and that's how I'm going to do the dove. Now, if you would like to, you can add a little bit of personality into that printemps, which is the spiral that we have there. If you wanted to add a little bit of weight into that spiral, you can just come in right underneath it and add a little bit of weight to make that dove have a little bit more interest in that printemps. Okay? All right, so have fun with that. I hope you enjoy it. And then when we come back, we're going to start to work around the doves. Okay, well, I just love these little doves, and I hope that you do too. I'm going to be working with two new colors now. We're going to take those other colors and just put them away for a moment. I'm going to be working with the True Blue, which is one of my favorite colors in the Prismacolor set, and that's PC 903. And then I also have in my hand the Aquamarine, which is PC 905. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the True Blue first, and you want to make sure that the True Blue is really well sharpened up because we're going to be working in a large swath or a large area here. And let's go ahead and zoom in on this here. So you can see that it's pretty well sharpened up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the color look like it's emanating outward from the center here. And so I'm going to start just by rubbing the side of the pencil once again into the tile here, going nice and soft. And I'm just going to let it kind of bounce around where the dove is, but you'll also notice that I'm kind of treating this like a little mist of color. I don't want it to be a really heavy color. And then once I've had a chance to get that soft blue in there, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to press a little bit harder, just to give a little depth and a bit of a shadow at the bottom. And then once I've got that, I'm going to pick up the aquamarine and I'm going to do a very soft dusting of the aquamarine right around that cindio. And I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So you'll notice that that color isn't really going past cindio, it's stopping. And then what I'm going to do then is I'm going to pick up that white again, and this is one of the things that I love to do with white, is to work with those blues in the Prismacolor set. And I'm just going to come in and blur out where that darker blue is meeting the lighter blue, and you can see that this is getting really soft and pastel-y. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that. And then I'm going to take that same technique and start to let it blur into the aquamarine. And I love the way that aquamarine takes on that white. It's just so pretty and so soft. Coming over to the other side. and blurring that out too. And look at how lovely that is. And if you want to come back in with a little bit more of that heavy blue right at the bottom, just to give it a little bit of drama, you can do that too. But look at how lovely and soft that is. I just really enjoy that, and I hope that you do too. All right, so I'm going to go around and I'm going to do all of mine. And if you want to come in here and pop in a little bit of color in there, you can go ahead and pop in a little bit of color and give it a little bit of drama. And that's really nice too. Okay, so go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to introduce some graphite into the piece. I just love where this is going. I hope you're enjoying it too. And so I have let go of my color pencils just for the moment here. And I've got a graphite pencil, which is a number 2 pencil, and I've got a blending stump in my hand here. And we're going to be using this to create a little bit of interest into the piece here. Some of you know that I don't like to add graphite until I absolutely have to. I'm left-handed, and so it tends to smear and smudge for me when I'm working in a piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to start nice and small here, and I'll show you what we're going to do. Okay, so to start with this piece, I'm going to come back into henna drum, and I'm going to just do a soft dusting of that graphite in there. I'll pick up a little bit of my blending stump. Now, if you don't have a blending stump, you can use a Q-tip and blend it out. You can see that gives it a really nice touch. And then I'm going to do a little bit heavier of a press with that and blend that out. Okay, so I'm going to go around and I'm going to do all of my henna drums just like that. And you can see that that adds a really nice gravity to the piece. One of the things that I love to do with graphite is mix it with color. I just think it's beautiful to see the combination of the two. So I'm going to come in and start to go into the center of Amath, and you're going to see me rub the side of the graphite into the diamond piece. And then I'm going to come back in with that blending stump and do a soft blur of that color. And then I'll come back in again and go with a little bit of a heavier pressure with that graphite and blur that out as well. So I'll go ahead and do mine, you go ahead and do yours. And that's really starting to come along as well. Let's go ahead and come into Cindio here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of a dusting of graphite into Cindio at the bottom. And then I'll pick up my pencil, or rather my blending tool, and let it blend up. And if you want to add a little bit more gravity to it, you can come back in and deepen that. Gives that a little bit more drama. And then inside of these little curls that we have here, we're going to put a little happy face inside of them, just really soft little happy face. You can see I'm doing kind of like a little jagged line, and then I'll come in with that blending tool and once again give that a little bit of interest as well, so that you can see that that really gives that a little bit of a pop. So I'm going to go ahead and do mine, you go ahead and do yours. And I really love the way that that is looking there. I'm going to come back into where my peace sign is, and right in between where I have my henna drums, I'm going to add a little shadow to the piece here. So in between the henna drums, just a little bit of a shadow, and then I'll take my blending tool and I'll start to give that a little bit of a blur out. And you can get these blending tools at any art store. They're called tortillons, and you can get several of them in a pack for about $2. They're really inexpensive, but a good old-fashioned Q-tip does the job any day of the week. So that's as much of the graphite that I'm going to put in here. When we come back, we're going to jump back into the orange just for a minute. You can see that I've had a chance to sharpen up my orange pencil here, and I'm going to come back to these little tipple that we have in here, and you're going to see me come and give it a little bit of a smiley face inside, and it almost makes it look like a pearl. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in with a little bit of white and give it a little bit of a softening. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it look almost pearlescent just by giving it a little bit of that softness. And you can see how that works out quite nicely there. So I'm going to go all the way around and do that with each of my tipple around the doves here. And underneath that orange, I'm going to come in with a little bit of pink just to give it that pearl feeling to it. So you can see that I'm just taking a little bit of that blush pink that we used before and just letting it come right to the edge just to give it a little bit of interest. And the last bit of color that I'm going to do on this piece is to take a little bit of that green and just pop it into his little olive branch that he has here. And each one of these will have a little bit different, but just a little pop of green in those as well. And then when we come back, we're going to pick up our white gel pens and do a little bit of highlighting inside of the piece. So many of you know that I really enjoy working with the Mizu Love Pens. You can get these on Amazon. They're my favorite white gel pen. They're the least persnickety of all the gel pens in my opinion here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to focus in on the center of our composition today. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on the peace sign here. And I'm just going to get my little gel pen started on my finger. I find that that really works well to get it started. And I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of shimmer of that white inside there, and I'll add a couple of dots just to give it a little bit of interest. I'll let that white start to come up into where the henna drum is just by giving it a little bit of a dot in the shadow. You want to be mindful of where your hand is so that you don't smear or smudge. I'll come up into the area where we have Cindio and add a little bit of interest into that diamond. And just turning the tile to make it work for your hands here. And once you've had a chance to go all the way around with that, you can come up into your tipple and add a little bit of white into those as well and get a really pretty soft sheen, or you can use a dot, whichever is working for you on those. So you can see that I've just added a really soft little dot in there. You could also come over into your Cindio top and add a little bit of white into where your shadow is. Okay, so go ahead, have fun and play with that, and then when we come back, we're going to do some final touches. So now is the time to take a look and see if there's any places on your piece that you wanted to clean up your lines, or you might find that some lines got gone over with the color pencils and you want to just define them a little bit. This is really that time to look for anything that you want to continue to work on as you finish up your piece. You can see that I'm kind of going around and looking for any lines that have gotten lost in my piece. Like down in here, this blue kind of swallowed up that line, so I'm just kind of bringing it back in. Once you feel like you have completed your piece, you can go ahead and add your chop, and your chop is your initial. And I usually just use my first name as my initial, so I have a little R that I do. And I like to hide my chop in my piece. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my original that I had here. And you can see that they're a little bit different from each other. And every time I come back and do a class or come back and relearn a piece, it's always a little bit different. There is no right or wrong way to do this. There's just the fun way to do it. So over here you can see that my cindews were really elongated, and over here they're a little bit wider and more robust. The interior piece was a little bit larger, whereas over here it's a little bit smaller. And here I added the henna drum, whereas over here I did crescent moon. So you can come back and try different things, and that's always really, really fun. So, as we come to a close today, I'd like to end with a quote, and this one's from Albert Einstein, and he says, "Peace cannot be kept by force, it can only be achieved by understanding." And I really feel right now in our world we need to develop a lot more understanding of each other and tolerance too. So I hope that this class has brought you a little bit of peace and a little bit of tranquility in your day, in your week. And please know that I'm thinking about you and hoping that you are well. Thanks so much for joining me for Pearls of Peace today. I so enjoyed teaching you this class, and I hope that you'll share it with others. That's it for me. I'm Rami Marks. Bye for now.